Hi there, Adam Steele here, and today's topic of conversation is, let's say you're in a band or you're a solo artist and you've been getting ready to record material and come into a studio. You're probably not ready to come into my studio. Let's talk. Now, just to start off, this is not a conversation about you're not good enough or something like that. This isn't about talent or ability. This is about me trying to get you to think about the kinds of things that you should be thinking about if you're getting ready to record your artist's work, your band's new album or EP, your magnum opus that you're going to show to the world. Because you're going to show this to the world. And you probably want this to go over well. You want this to be super successful. So there are probably quite a lot of things that you've not considered. I mean, you're not stupid. If you're a creative person and you've written a whole song, you're doing pretty well. But as a creative person who has created a thing, I'm going to bet that you probably got real kind of tunnel vision on your project and you've steamed ahead. You've written this song or set of songs or EP and you're going to turn up to my studio on day one and you're going to be bashing things out on your not quite ready instruments with your not quite ready song, and we're going to play it back and I will do my level best to make it sound the best it can sound. And you'll listen back and you'll go, yeah, that's great. And you'll listen to it a week later and go, because the reaction that you get from everybody who you play it to is they go, oh, that sounds really nice. You know, when your mother says, oh, it's really good. And your friend says, yeah, all right. The thing is, there are things you probably didn't think of. Let's start with arrangement. What I do with any band that is going to come into my studio is I say to them, have you finished writing the songs? And they generally say yes. If they say no, then I say, well, go away and finish writing the songs. Unless I'm doing pre-production with them, Rick Rubin style, where I will go to them and they will play me the songs and we'll talk about arrangement in person. What I get them to do is record me a demo. But Adam, you might say, if they're recording themselves, then what's the point in you recording them? I don't mean getting a full production suite at their rehearsal room and doing it line by line. I mean literally just put a phone in the middle of the room, hit record, actually play the thing. That's all I need to begin with. Because very quickly from that, I can listen to that hastily thrown together demo and I can tell whether you're ready for the studio. You see, especially if you're a young band and you've not recorded very much or anything else at all at that point, you might not have considered things like getting to the point with arrangements and trying to get a listener's attention without sacrificing artistic intent, of course. Realizing that just because one member of the band is more talented than the others doesn't mean that they should be allowed to just shred all over the song all the time, that kind of thing. I'm thinking of a particular band as a really good example. I'm not going to name them, but a band that I must have recorded in 2011, 2012, where there were two guitarists, drummer. They didn't have a bass player, but one of the guitarists played bass, and for them that was fine, and a singer. And singer was great, but didn't have any training in terms of rock vocal dynamics. The drummer was a little bit lumpy, but that's just kind of, young drummer stuff. But that's the kind of thing where I would have sat them down and gone, work with a metronome, come back to me in 4 weeks. It doesn't have to sound more flashy. It has to be on the beat. But then one of the guitarists was doing just like chug, 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 chug throughout the song, which was fine. But the other one was going throughout pretty much the entire song. And it meant that there was no rise and fall in the song's arrangement. There was no... Once you'd heard 20 seconds of it, you'd heard the whole song. Is kind of it. It didn't get bigger when it got to the chorus. The solo was just the same thing, but the Widdly bit was louder. There was like a minute long intro of just kind of delay guitar. And as pretty as it sounded, these guys had obviously been in the practice room, kind of heads down, looking at their pedal boards, kind of getting into the groove like a jam band. And it was probably felt really good to these guys, teenagers. And then, because I hadn't done any pre-production with them, again, so this is my experience talking now, we recorded it, we played it all back, and I'm going, yeah, well, I've got it to sound good, but nobody's getting to the chorus that's a minute and a half in before they've turned it off. So when I went back to it years later, just to look at it and just go, huh, because I just kind of had a night of nostalgia and was flicking through old projects. I was like, right, this intro, I'm going to cut to a third of what it was before. I'm just going to turn off some of the widdly guitars in certain bits. And suddenly the whole thing came to life. But that's the kind of thing where you want the band to be involved in those kind of decisions. And as a producer, because of course the producer-engineer roles are very much entwined these days, this is what you really have to lay down to bands, especially when they're younger, that you've got to go, look, what is the audience you're targeting? Are you trying to get the attention of fellow teenagers, you know, or are you trying to get the attention of 55-year-old prog rock fans? Which, you know, I almost resemble that remark. I like 25-minute songs, but the bands that write music for that demographic, that appeals to me, but they know they're doing that. That's the thing. If you know that you can do a 2-minute intro, a 4-minute intro, a 6-minute intro before the vocals come in, and your audience is going to love that, that's fine. But is that your audience? I'm talking to you as the band or the artist. Who are your target demographic? And it sounds like marketing speak. It sounds like spiel. It sounds to say a phrase like that. But it's the most important question. Who are you making this music for? And don't just say, oh, I'm making it for myself, because then nobody else is going to listen to it. Nobody else is going to like it apart from you. You can make music that you like and also make music that other people like. It's entirely possible to align those values and to say, right, okay, well, now that we've thought about it, let's trim this intro down to 20 seconds and make it the best intro it can be. And it's still us and it's still our artistic value. And now the crowd just gets into it and then it hits and then they go mad and they love it. So in this video, I'm not going to talk about like specific song arrangements, that kind of thing. There are people like my friend Trey Xavier who does exactly that kind of thing. He does like songwriting classes and courses and all that kind of stuff. But what I tend to do is I do a bit of that Rick Rubin kind of thing where I will have the band just play me a basic version of a song, and I can very quickly, because I'm not thinking as an engineer, just for 5 minutes, I can go, that took too long to get in. What are you doing there? That solo's out of key. You know, all that kind of stuff. And make the song a better song before the band get to the studio, so that when they tighten up the arrangement, they can then play through that start to finish and have a song that really hits. So when they come in, we're not spending half a day or a full day of admittedly expensive studio time talking about all this, rewriting, re-recording in the studio, which, again, especially if you're not like in a veteran season touring band and you're not like a veteran musician, changing the arrangement on the fly is probably going to throw you for a loop. Because you'll get to the point where you go, oh, sorry, I forgot that we chopped half the verse out. Stop, go back, re-record, stop, go back, re-record. Which, you know, again, it wastes your time. Because if we're being honest with each other, if I've got a band in here, they pay by the day. If it takes you 2 days more, you're paying me 2 days more. But as it stands, I've probably got videos to make and other clients wanting to come in. I probably can't afford to take those 2 days, which means that you end up with a half-finished set of songs that you were never truly happy with and had to rush. So, you know, I don't want that for the bands that come into my studio. I want them to be happy coming in and extremely happy going out. I don't want there to be any negative compromises once they enter through these doors. The other thing that happens so often with bands that I say they're not ready for the studio is that they've not got their equipment ready. And I don't just mean getting expensive gear, because you don't need expensive gear. If there's anything you have that is particular to you, it needs to be in good working order. Like, I've had bass players come in here with dead strings and they're like, well, I insist on using my bass. And it's like, well, either you change the strings right now, which again comes back to wasting studio time, or I give you one of my professionally set up, perfectly ready, fresh stringed session instruments and go, right, now you're going to play this. Which, you know, a lot of musicians go, oh, okay, that's great, this sounds great. Some of them get upset by that, but it's your time. And if you're prepared beforehand, then we don't have any of these kinds of issues. Also, making decisions before you get into the studio about, like, I need this kind of guitar for this solo part, this kind of guitar for this solo part, and talking to me or the engineer, the producer, whoever it may be, and saying, I've not got one of those guitars. Have you got one? At which point I look at my rack and I go, yeah, I've got one. I'll make sure it's got fresh strings on it before you arrive. Simple planning ahead communication saves time, because I can change strings on a guitar in 5 minutes whilst I'm watching a YouTube video or eating my dinner, or, you know, maybe not change strings while I'm eating my dinner, but you get the point. While I'm on a break, I can do something that's a 5-minute job whilst I'm procrastinating something else as part of preparation that I don't have to charge the band for, because it took 5 minutes that I was still, you know, in my own time, so to speak. Drum heads, making sure that you've got fresh drum heads, maybe that you've already put the fresh drum heads on your kit the night before, they're ready to be stretched in, ready to go, so that when we get into the studio, we stretch them a bit, we tune them to the right tuning, put them on, and go. That's the kind of thing where that takes, what, an hour to reskin a full kit, maybe more if you're not super experienced and don't have, like, you know, the electric drill and that kind of, you know, change. And that's wasting your time. Even, like, talking to me or whoever the engineer is and saying, this is the kit that I have, what kits do you have for this demo that I sent you, calling back to earlier? What sort of drum kit do you think would be most appropriate to that style and to that song? You know, and do you have that? Because then I can say, well, yes, actually, out of the 4 songs that you sent me, 3 of them would work really well with your kit, but one's a slower song that would need, like, an 8-inch deep kind of ballad snare. I've got one, I'll put a fresh head on it. You know, all these kinds of things that you're thinking ahead about, all the details. You've got the arrangement down, you've got your equipment right. Your singer has been taking it easy, not drinking the night before, doing steams and warm-ups for a couple of days, not singing too much, vocal rest, but also going mentally through the song and all the words and all that kind of stuff. Not writing the song's lyrics in the studio, which I've had more than once. So, in conclusion, when I say you're not ready for the studio, I don't mean you don't have the ability, I mean you need a game plan, and you need to work with me, or whoever your producer or engineer might be. Talk to them, communicate about everything that you might think that you might need, because that little bit of preparation beforehand can pay off in spades. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you found this one interesting. I certainly found it cathartic getting all this down on tape. And thanks to the patrons on Patreon for supporting us. You make a massive difference in keeping the lights on around here. It's very much appreciated. And thanks everybody for watching. Hit like and subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.